Welcome back to an episode of SmoothBrainEDH, with the smoothest plays with the biggest brains. This week, we have our patron Gutty on for some cEDH action, so let's see what everyone brought to the table. First up is Chandler and Magda, Brazen Outlaw. This is a mono red deck hoping to create treasure tokens to sacrifice to Magda and cheat out powerful artifacts and combo pieces, generally creating infinite treasures with Magda, a way to make Magda an artifact and Clock of Omens. Up next is Jason on Atraxa, Grand Unifier. This 4-color deck is a mid-range value deck looking to go bigger than its opponents over a long game. It's looking to finish off the opponents with combo lines involving Displacer Kitten, Food Chain, and Thassa's Oracle to win the game. Our third player today is Matt on Nadu, Winged Wisdom. This new hotness from Modern Horizons 3 is a Simic combo deck, using Nadu and abilities to target for 0 mana to loop through the deck, putting all lands into play and drawing the deck, winning with a big ol' finale of devastation. Last is Gutty on Koll, the Forge Master. This Boros deck is Skull Clamp the deck. Koll plus Skull Clamp plus a way to equip Skull Clamp for 0 mana, plus a creature that costs 0 mana allows Gutty to draw his entire deck, then kill with an infinite line with cards like Mask of Immolation. We're about to hop right into the game, but before that, go ahead and give us a like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. We have links to our social media, our public Discord server, Decklists, and our Patreon in the description. We're partnered with Dragon Shield. Check out our affiliate link in the description if you'd like to pick up any sleeves, deck boxes, or playmats, and use code SMOOTH5 at checkout for 5% off your order. We are also partnered with Inked Gaming. Our affiliate link is also in the description if you'd like to make any custom playmats. Now, on to the gameplay.
It looks like Chandler wins the die roll. He'll start off by casting Chrome Mox, and when it resolves, he imprints Final Fortune under it. He'll then play the Cavern of Souls he just top-decked, and he'll name Dwarf. He'll then cast Magda the Horde Master. Oh, he doesn't know how much of a mistake that was. Then he'll cast Mox Opal, and pass the turn to Jason, who starts off with a Scalding Tarn, and he'll immediately fetch with it for a Tundra. He'll then cast his own Chrome Mox, and imprint Stormdrake, then tap for 2, and cast Dranith Magistrate. The turn is then passed to Matt, and he says Tarn go. Gutty will play an Ancient Den, cast Esper Sentinel, and pass to Chandler. He'll start off with a basic Mountain, then cast Unlicensed Hearse, and he does pay the 1. 2 is then swung at Gutty, who obviously doesn't block, and then the turn is passed. Jason starts off with a Talisman of Dominance, 1 not paid, then he'll tap it to cast a Deathrite Shaman. He'll then play and fetch with a Flooded Strand for a Savannah, and then he'll tap it to cast Noble Hierarch. He'll then move to combat and swing for 2 at Gutty thanks to Exalted, and then he'll pass the turn to Matt, who fetches on instep for a Tropical Island. Then on his turn, Matt will play Yavi Maya and then pass to Gutty, who starts off with a Command Tower, then he'll tap for 2 and cast Fighter Class. This tutors him Skull Clamp to his hand, and then he'll pass to Chandler, who stays on instep to use Unlicensed Hearse to exile Jason's 2 lands in his graveyard. It is a crime, so he gets a tapped treasure, then he'll move to his turn, where he'll do it again and exile Matt's land. Another crime trigger. He'll then play a Fomori Vault as land for turn, then swing for 2 at Jason, who will just take it, and then he passes to Jason. And he starts his turn off with a Verdant Catacombs, and he'll immediately fetch with it, and this finds him a Bayou. He'll then tap for 7, and he has to exile that land with his Deathrite Shaman, and he'll put Atraxa on the stack. Matt decides Jason's not allowed to have a Dranith out and resolve an Atraxa trigger, so he'll free cast Force of Will, pitching a Pheto Alchemist to counter it. And the 1 is paid. Jason has no responses, so Atraxa is countered. He'll then pass the turn, and Matt starts off with a Waterlogged Grove. Unfortunately, Matt is pretty locked out without Nadu, so he'll cast the Seeker of Skybreak and pass to Gutty, who starts off with a tapped Monumental Hinges land for turn. Then he'll pass the turn to Chandler, who stops on instep to activate Fomori Vault, and he'll discard a Pyroblast. He has 5 artifacts, so that's what the X is, so he looks at the top 5, picks a card, and puts it to his hand. Then he'll move to his turn, where he'll start off with an Imperial Recruiter. It resolves, and this tutors Dockside Extortionist to his hand. He says he wants to get as many treasures as possible so he can start the beatdown plan with this Magda, so he'll cast the Dockside. Gutty will respond though with a Swords to Plowshares on the Horde Master. Chandler responds to this by activating the Crew of Unlicensed Hearse using Magda, and then she'll be exiled and he gains 2. The Dockside then resolves and Chandler makes 5 more treasure tokens. He'll then move to combat. Hearse is swung at Jason, and he'll take 3, and then the turn is passed to Jason, where he'll start off with a Talisman of Progress. He does pay the 1, and then the turn is passed to Matt. He'll play a tapped Breeding Pool, and pass. Gutty will start his turn off by setting up for a potential combo in the future by leveling up Fighter Class. His equip abilities now cost 2 less. He'll then pass the turn to Chandler, and on first main he'll activate Fomori Vault again. He discards a Goblin Welder, and X is now 10. He'll pick a card and then pass to Jason. And Jason starts off with a Finale of Devastation, X is 2. He will pay for the 1, and then it resolves. This finds Flesh Duplicate to the battlefield, and he makes his own Dockside. ETB trigger will go on the stack, and Chandler decides to sacrifice his 7 treasures in response. This floats 7 red, and then Jason will get 6 treasures. He'll then pass the turn to Matt, who casts his own flesh duplicate. No responses to the cast or ETB, so Matt makes 15 treasures. And then the turn is passed to Gutty. He decides he eventually wants his own dockside, so he'll cast a goblin matron to tutor it. Gutty will then pass the turn, and on end step, Chandler activates his hearse to exile Force of Will, and then Gutty discards Imperial Recruiter on cleanup. We'll then move to Chandler's turn, and he's still on the Dig with Fomori Vault plan, so he'll just pass to Jason and do it at instant speed. Vanishing trigger, and Jason will immediately attempt to cast Atraxa again. Matt is still on the no Atraxa train though, and he will attempt to Pact of Negation it. He pays the 1 to Esper Sentinel, and then Jason will respond with an offer you can't refuse, countering it, and he also pays the 1. Priority then passes for Atraxa again, and when it gets to Chandler, he decides to also hop on the anti-Atraxa train, and he'll Red Elemental Blaster attempting to counter her. The Esper Sentinel is not paid for, and then Atraxa is countered. Jason will then move to combat and swing an Exalted Dockside at Gutty, and then pass the turn to Matt. Vanishing trigger on upkeep, then he'll move to combat and swing 1 at Gutty, who just takes it. The turn is then passed to Gutty, and he'll play an Inspiring Vantage, and then, cast Dockside. Both Matt and Jason sacrifice all their treasures in response, and then it resolves, and Gutty will make 6 treasures. And then Gutty will cast a Grand Abolisher, and the entire table goes, uh-oh. Jason will respond. The mana he floated off of his 1 treasure was black, so he'll activate his Deathrite Shaman to exile Matt's Pact of Negation, and each of his opponents lose 2 life. And when Jason does this, priority goes back around, and Chandler decides to use his hearse to exile Gutty's graveyard. And also activate Fomori Vault to see if he can find anything. He discards trash for treasure, looks at the top 3, picks a card, and then passes priority. And the Grand Abolisher will resolve, so Gutty will continue by evoking Fury, pitching Wheel of Fortune, and he'll kill the Drannith Magistrate and Noble Hierarch. He'll then cast Koll, Crimson Kobolds, and Skull Clamp. His combo is assembled. He'll move to free equip the Skull Clamp to his Kobolds, but Matt will respond by channeling Beseiju, attempting to destroy it. Gutty's got the SWAT though, so he changes the ability over to Chandler's Unlicensed Hearse, and it's destroyed. The equip then resolves, and the combo begins. The Kobolds die, and Koll will return it to Gutty's hand, and he draws 2. He'll then free cast the Kobold, free equip the Skull Clamp, and repeat the process. It dies, Koll returns it to his hand, and he draws 2. So he'll repeat this, drawing in intervals of 2 until he finds a Mana Crypt, and then with that he's able to cast Mask of Immolation. He'll then free equip it to Dockside, sacrifice it to deal a damage to someone, and it bounces to his hand. And since he had a mana floating from his Mana Crypt, he'll then sacrifice a treasure and recast Dockside to make 6 treasures, and repeat this process till everyone is dead. And that makes Gutty and Koll our champions of this game. Congratulations!
What a great game. Awesome win, Gutty. Way to represent Boros. But I think that game was just a little too short, so we recorded another. That's right, double feature. Here's everyone's game 2 hands. I'll give you just a second to look at them. Now, let's get into it.
Looks like Chandler wins the die roll again, and he has the coveted turn 1 Mana Crypt. He'll then play a basic mountain and cast Magda, Brazen Outlaw. He's got 1 mana floating from his Mana Crypt, so he'll cast Clowncar X's 1. He rolls 1d6 and it's odd, so he gets a 1/1 Clown Robot. He'll then crew the Clown Car with Magda, make a treasure, and pass to Jason. And Jason starts off with an Exotic Orchard, then he'll play Mox Diamond, pitching Beseiju, and then he'll cast a Demonic Tutor. He'll then pass the turn to Matt, who also has a Mox Diamond. He pitches Wooded Foothills, then plays an Ancient Tomb as land for turn, taps for 3, and he'll cast Rhystic Study. Chandler will crack his treasure though to Red Elemental Blast it and counter it. The turn is then passed to Gutty, and he starts off with a Great Furnace. He'll then free cast Mox Amber, and then pay 1 red to cast Ragavan. The turn is then passed to Chandler, and he loses his Crypt trigger. Then he'll play an Urza Saga as land for turn. After this, he taps for 1 red and casts Dwarven Grunt. And thanks to Magda's buff, it's able to immediately crew Clowncar and make Chandler a treasure. Chandler will then move to combat, and he swings his 1/1 Clown at Gutty, his 1/1 Clowncar at Matt, and Magda at Jason, and they all just take their damage. And Magda makes a treasure for becoming tapped. The turn is then passed to Jason, and he'll just cast a Fellwar Stone and pass to Matt, who will just cast a Pheto Alchemist and pass to Gutty. And Gutty will start off with a Sunbaked Canyon as land for turn. He'll then move to combat and swing for 2 at Chandler with Ragavan, and it connects. So Gutty makes a treasure, and Chandler exiles Universal Automaton, and Gutty will not cast it. Post-combat, he'll cast a Bladehold War Whip and then pass the turn to Chandler, who wins his Mana Crypt trigger, and his Saga will tick up. He'll then activate his Saga to make a Construct, and he uses it to crew Clowncar. He'll then move to combat, and he swings his Dwarven Grunt at Matt for 2, and then everything else at Jason for 4. 2 more treasures are made, and then they just take their damage. The turn is then passed to Jason, and he starts off with a Rhystic Study. Gutty responds to it with an Enlightened Tutor. This will tutor Memnite to the top of his deck, and then it resolves. Then the turn is passed to Matt. With the help of a Phyto Alchemist, Matt is able to tap his Mox Diamond for both a blue and a green, and then he'll tap his Ancient Tomb for 2 colorless. He'll use 3 mana to cast Nadu, and he'll have 1 colorless floating. He does not pay the 1. Because he uses that floating mana for a Shuko, and he doesn't pay the 1 again. There are no responses, and Matt is able to equip it to both of his creatures twice, so I'm just going to shortcut and tell you what's revealed. Yavimaya is the first one, and it goes to the battlefield. Mana Confluence is the second, also going to the battlefield. Chain of Vapor is the third, and it goes to hand. And the fourth is Waterlogged Grove, and it goes to the battlefield. After this, he'll cast a Chain of Vapor targeting his own Phyto Alchemist. 1 is not paid. Then he'll sacrifice Waterlogged Grove to get another copy of Chain of Vapor, bouncing the War Whip. Gutty does not continue the chain, and then Matt will cast a Phyto Alchemist again. And he can't pay the 1 now. Shuko is then equipped to it twice, with no responses. First one is Breeding Pool to the battlefield, Matt shocks it. Then the second one is a Phyrexian Metamorph that goes to his hand. Matt is now more than back in this game, so he'll equip Shuko to Nadu and then pass the turn to Gutty, who will immediately move to combat, and Ragavan goes at Chandler again. No blocks, treasure is made, and Dwarven Armorer is exiled but not cast. After this, Gutty will cast Stoneforge Mystic. 1 is not paid, and Skullclamp is tutored to hand. The turn is then passed to Chandler, and he wins his Crypt trigger, and Urza Saga ticks to 3. Chandler will respond to it by tapping it for a colorless mana, and then he'll sacrifice it to tutor an Ashnod's Transmogrant to the battlefield. And with it on the field now, Chandler has everything he needs to attempt to combo off. And he decides to go for it by sacrificing the Transmogrant, targeting his Dwarven Grunt. Gutty ain't having it though, and he'll soul partition the Grunt in response. Chandler will respond by tapping it to crew Clown Car and make a treasure, and then it's exiled. He can cast it for 2 more mana though, and that's exactly what he does. He'll tap for 3, cast it, and then uses 1 floating to pay for Jason's Rhystic Study. Chandler will then move to combat and swing his 9 power Construct at Matt, and then everything else at Jason for 4. Magda will make another treasure, growing the Construct, and then Jason and Matt take their Ouchie Boom Booms. Chandler will then pass the turn to Jason, who starts off with the Savannah as land for turn. Then he'll just pass the turn and discard Lotho on cleanup. Matt starts off by double equipping Nadu, and this reveals Shifting Woodland to the battlefield and Lightning Greaves to hand. Then the Alchemist is double equipped by Shuko, and this reveals Gilded Drake to hand and Spellskite to hand. He'll then cast the Gilded Drake, and he does pay for the 1. It resolves, and the ETB trigger will target Magda. Trigger on the stack, Chandler will sacrifice 5 of his 6 treasures to activate Magda and tutor a card. It resolves. So he finds Portal to Phyrexia to the battlefield, and its ETB trigger will go on the stack. Nobody responds to it, so Gutty and Matt each sacrifice their 3 creatures. And Matt does not put Nadu in the command zone. Then the Gilded Drake trigger will not happen because there's nothing to exchange. Gilded Drake is gone. Matt will continue on though by playing an island and then activating Shifting Woodland to become a copy of Nadu. Shifting Nadu is then double equipped, and this reveals Windswept Heath and Sylvan Paradise. Matt will then fetch with his Windswept Heath for a tropical island. He'll then cast his Spellskite and not pay the 1, and then Spellskite is double equipped. This reveals Crop Rotation and Arbor Elf. Matt will then cast the Arbor Elf and then double equip it. This reveals Dosen and a Forest. Matt will then tap and sacrifice that forest to cast Crop Rotation. The rest of the table knows that Matt is going to get and trigger Field of the Dead to potentially go off here. So when priority gets to him, Chandler will cast a Fork to copy it. It resolves, so he'll tutor his library for a land, and he'll find a Strip Mine to the battlefield, ready for that field when it hits. Then Matt's resolves, and he decides to get a Gaia's Cradle instead. Field is just a turd for now. He'll then tap it for 3 green mana to cast Archdruid's Charm, choosing the search mode, and it resolves. He'll go find Dryad Arbor to the battlefield tapped, and double equip it. This reveals March of Swirling Mists and Unctus. Unfortunately though, he's got nothing left to do, so he'll pass the turn and discard Sylvan Paradise and Unk on cleanup. Now into Gutty's turn, he starts off with an Inspiring Vantage. He'll then cast his War Whip again, paying the 1, and then he'll pass the turn. Chandler will stay on instep though to crew Clown Car with Dwarven Grunt and make another treasure. Then on his turn, Chandler will save his Crypt trigger and then reanimate Nadu out of Matt's graveyard. Then he'll move to his pre-combat main phase, tap for 4 mana, and cast Roaming Throne. He does pay the 1. It resolves, he names Dwarf, and then he'll move to combat and swing his 8/8 Construct at Gutty. Gutty just takes the damage, and then Chandler will pass the turn, threatening to tap his dwarves at instant speed and tutor at instant speed. So now on Jason's turn, he'll start off with a command tower as land for turn. He'll then exile Elvish Spirit Guide for a green, and then tap for a mana to cast Talisman of Dominance. He'll then pass the turn, and on cleanup, he discards Displacer Kitten, Smothering Tithe, and Bloodstained Mire. Let's move to Matt's turn now. He'll start off with a Phyrexian Metamorph. It resolves, and he has it enter as a copy of Nadu. Alright, let the turn begin. He starts off by equipping Dryad Arbor, and he reveals a Scoot Swarm, and it goes to his hand. After this, Matt will tap his Gaia's Cradle for 4 green, and then he'll cast Dosen. He uses that extra green to pay for Rhystic Study. Chandler responds by crewing Clown Car with his Dwarven Grunt, and this makes 2 treasures, and then he'll do it again with Magda to make 2 more. He'll then sacrifice 5 of his 6 treasures to tutor with Magda to see if there's anything he can do to slow down or stop Matt. Unfortunately, there's nothing he can do to stop equip cost, but he will get God Pharaoh statue, hoping the tax to spells will slow down Matt for now. Jason will also respond to Matt's cast by tapping for 5 and flashing in an opposition agent. He and Chandler both hope that this will be enough to keep Matt from winning this turn. So Dosen will resolve, and then Matt will cast Scoot Swarm for 5 mana. And now if he's able to get a few Scoot Swarm triggers, he'll be pretty much unstoppable. And Rhystic Study is not paid for. Dosen is then double equipped, and this reveals Green Sun Zenith and Elvish Mystic. Then Spellskite is double equipped, and this reveals Soulless Jailer and Field of the Dead. When Field of the Dead hits the field, it will trigger and Scoot Swarm will trigger. Chandler decides to respond to these by strip mining the Field of the Dead. It's gone, but Matt will still get a Scoot Swarm copy and a zombie. Then, since he only equipped Arbor Elf once, he'll do the second one, and this reveals a Misty Rainforest, which triggers more Scoot Swarms. We are now at the point where Matt pretty much can't stop. He's going to be doubling Scoot Swarms, and each of those is 2 more triggers. He's got 4 now, so that's 8 more equips. Arbor Elf will then be double equipped. This reveals Noxious Revival, and Finale of Devastation. Then Original Scoot Swarm is equipped twice, this reveals Beseiju and Sea King's Blessing, and 4 more Scoot Swarms will be made. Then the Zombie is equipped, this reveals Soul Ring and Command Tower. 8 more Scoot Swarms are made. And it's at this point, Matt's probably got it, so the table just lets him equip all 15 of his Scoot Swarms at the same time and reveal the top 30 cards of his library. So that's what he does, and out of the top 30 cards of his library, there are 7 lands. Since these all come in individually and not at the same time, his Scoot Swarms double every time, which means he ends this with a total of 2,048 Scoot Swarms. If you ask me, I'd say that's enough to keep equipping and draw his deck, so yeah, that's what he'll do. And he's got a bunch of untapped lands now, which he will use to cast Thassa's Oracle. No responses from the table, so when it hits the field, Matt will win the game. Gotta say, it's nice to see Thoracle win without a consultation. Congratulations on the win, Matt. Well everyone, what did you think? Those were 2 very exciting games. I'd like to thank Gutty for coming out and playing with us, and I'd like to apologize for not being very good at cEDH. I'm learning, I promise. Yeah, once again, thank you so much for playing with us. It was a blast. Anyways, you viewers, let us know what you thought of these games down in the comments below, and while you're down there, check out all our links if you haven't already. Speaking of if you haven't already, like and subscribe. Anyways, that's enough out of me today. I hope you all have a smooth day.